Hey everybody, what's up? Gary Simon here. Look at this thing. It is large. It is huge. It's like a boil almost, or a bug bite. It's probably a damn pimple. I'm 36. Am I still getting pimples? Probably. Anyhow, today I'm going to be showing you how to use this, which is Catalog, all right? So this is living style guides for digital projects, or products rather. And so basically, if you have a project that's, it's a real project, it's a large project, it's helpful to have a design system in place. And a design system is an umbrella term that includes a style guide, and it includes a lot of different things. And what this will allow you to do is to quickly get that style guide / design system set up quickly and easily so that you don't have to create one from scratch. Now first, if you don't even know what a style guide is, well basically if you have a large project like I said earlier, and you have developers and you have designers, you have a team working together, it's nice to have a central area called a style guide or a design system that you can all collaborate with, and you can basically document the typography that needs to be used so that it's consistently applied throughout your project, the colors, like your color scheme, a lot of other things, all your components. You want them to be consistently applied. So that's the whole purpose. And so Catalog makes setting up that catalog, in a sense, easy. All right, so I'm going to show you how to install it. It's free. I'm going to show you how to get it set up and also how to use the documentation, because we're not going to go through every single option. There's a lot of them, but I'm going to show you how to use the documentation so that once you create your own design system or your style guide, you'll be able to do so very easily. All right, so as always, if you haven't subscribed already, what are you waiting for? Do so, click like, leave a comment, and let's get started. Before we begin, this video is sponsored by Linode. Now, as a front-end developer or a designer, you know that you need a personal portfolio. And if you use a website builder like Wix or Squarespace, they lack total customization and they lock you into using their platform. But to be a pro, you need to use the tools that the pros actually use. So level up, start building your own projects and your own portfolio on an enterprise level content management system like WordPress or Drupal. Now, real web development sometimes requires knowledge of spinning up servers, managing domain names, and setting up an occasional staging environment. And there's no better or simpler way to learn the ins and outs of hosting your website than with Linode Cloud Hosting. Linode Cloud Hosting makes it as easy as possible for you to deploy a WordPress or Drupal website in seconds with the free Linode one-click app marketplace. So click on the very top link here in the YouTube description to get your free Linode account, along with $20 of free hosting and all the tools that you need to build enterprise class websites. All right, so the first thing that we need to get started with is we actually have to install Catalog, all right? So they give you 3 different ways. If we go to Docs here and then we go to Installation, you can do the CLI, which is the command line interface tool option, which is what we're gonna do, but you can also do it as a module and also as a standalone, with like CDNs and such. So we're gonna do this option. So the main line we want here is, of course, if you're gonna do this option, NPM, you're gonna have to have Node.js installed. By default, that includes the NPM and the package manager. And then once you have that installed, and I'm not gonna go through that, I'm assuming you guys will be able to take care of that yourselves, hopefully. Let's make this larger so you can see it. And then wherever you put your, well, for now, this initial command right here, you can run that anywhere because we have the global flag, the -G, which means it's going to install it on your machine so that you only have to install it once. And then after it's installed, I'm not running it because I already ran it. We then just run the next command, which is create catalog, and then the name of your project, and that's what it will create the folder out of. So I'll just call this DC -catalog. All right. So it's going to run through this, and as you can see, it's installing Catalog along with React. So yes, it's based on React. So for those of you who are familiar with it already, it'll be an added bonus, but even if you're not familiar with React, it's still not that difficult to run. So now that it's installed, we're going to go to CD DC catalog, or whatever you called yours. And before I run yarn run catalog start, I'm going to type code period, which will launch Visual Studio Code in the current directory. And this is what it looks like. We'll check this out in a second But first, let's run that command, yarn run catalog start. Now this will start a server. You can see it says starting catalog. There we go. So now all we have to do is just copy that. In this case, we'll right click it to copy. And there we go. This is what it looks like so far. So as you can see, it's very bare bones, but this is the basis of your design system or your style guide. All right, so it's up to us to build this out and to change this stuff. All right, so it's based on Markdown. Okay, I'll show you how to get this up in setting and running rather. So let's go ahead and let's get open our new fresh directory. All right, so let me make this a little bit larger, Control plus, just so you guys can see everything I'm doing. And we want to work within the catalog folder. And you can see we have an index.html, which we're not going to touch that. What we're going to touch is the index.js. And this is where we can do certain things like right now you can see we have an array of objects. We just have one object, which is our only page currently, and that's populated right here. It says welcome, and you can see all this content right here, and this title is right there. So if I change the title to, I don't know, something like home, we'll see and save it automatically. It's reflected right here and here. So that's the name of each page. And also it will point to, in this property, welcome.md. So it's your Markdown file right here. So all of the stuff, now if you're not familiar with Markdown, you can, I haven't done a course on Markdown, but it's fairly simple. You can go to Google and type Markdown cheat sheet, and you can get all the ways for defining certain things. But you can, oh, and also you can check out their documentation. So we have configuration, and we also have writing content. I want to check this out real quick, just so we're all, both on the same page. As you can see, it's just outlined what I described right here. All right, and then also it'll tell you more about the pages and how it's all set up. But really, we're going to be working within writing content and specimens. So back to what I was saying, you can see all this stuff right here where it says like hi and it has like an image and all that stuff. Of course, that is all being shown right here where it says hi, here's the image, all that stuff. Very simple. So as you can see, by using your index.js, you define each page, you can create your pages, and then also each page in that object, in that array of objects, points to a Markdown file. And so that's how it's all set up. And then coming back to this area, we can see we have specimens. Now specimens are an extension of standard Markdown syntax to include special content like color palettes and fully interactive components. So that's where the power and the strength and the relevance and the utility, I'm sorry, I'm just coming up with synonyms unnecessarily, but that's where the power of catalog comes in, because it creates all of these style guide / design specific components that you can easily use. So for instance, color. If you want, a part of any style guide is going to be a color theme. It's going to show you, the colors, red, 555, and it's as simple as just copying this code and pasting in. So that's the value of it. And so we're going to work with a few of these along with checking out the specimens, and all over here you can see there's a bunch of audio code, color, whatever. So let's get to work and actually set this up. So let's go back to our index.js, and the one thing I want to do here is we're going to change this right here. So we don't want this to say home. I think I'm just going to change this title here to Design Course Style Guide. And this is going to point to, we're just going to keep the welcome, but we're going to change, actually we're going to leave this here by default. Obviously, if this were a real style guide or a design system, you would change all of this stuff specific to, whatever you want to. Now let's go talk about adding another page. So this is also covered in the documentation. What we're going to do is create a group of pages. All right. So many design systems, they group up, because a design system is an all-encompassing term that really is an umbrella term that covers a lot of different things. We want to create a group of pages, and the umbrella term will be design. All right, so here's how this works. I'm going to create another object here, or an array rather, or no, an object, sorry. And we're going to make this one, we'll make this, yeah, we'll put a title first. The title will be, like I said, design. And then the path will be to design as well. All right, and then we're gonna have pages. Now, pages is a property that needs to be defined as an array of object. So that's how you create a grouping of pages. So in our pages, we'll just have an object here, path. This will be our first link. We'll make this colors. And then also title. So it just follows the same old convention as this one, except this is going to be a group of pages under the design heading, if that makes sense. Title will be colors. Why is it doing that? Stop that. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and just copy this for the content. And this will point to colors.md. All right. So we'll save that. And it's going to error at this point because this page right here doesn't exist. So we're going to create a colors.md. So I'm going to copy. Well, let me just check my reference code because we're not going to be doing anything too crazy here. All right, so we'll work this by default. So if we go back to our project, we'll see now we have design. And when you click on it, it expands. Indented is the first page, a part of that group. So that's colors, and of course, it is empty. All right, so what would you include on a colors page, right? So as a part of any regular project, when you're concerning your style guide and your design system, you want to have an outline, the primary colors that are associated with your design, right? So we're going back to the documentation. If we go to Specimens, go to color, and here we go. It's going to tell us how to use this. All right. So in order to show, this situation right here where we have 3 different colors, this is the code example that it gives you. Very simple. So what we'll do is take that and let's have a heading. And by the way, this is where the Markdown cheat sheet will help. To get like an H3 element, you put 3 of those right there, and then we put in your title. So our title will be the design course color scheme or something like that. And then we'll paste that in. So now we save, and there you go. It's automatically styled for us, and it comes responsive out of the box. All right, so there's also a color palette section here in the documentation. So if you have a primary color that has certain shades, you can define this as well. So we'll just copy that. Now, of course, if this were a real project, you would be inputting your own hex values and the name if you wish, and just basically customizing everything. So over here, we'll put primary color shades or something like that. All right, save it, and it just works, as you will see right there. Very, very, very cool stuff. There's also pagination worked within automatically because there's not another page. There's not another link pointing here. So just to do this again a couple more times to get some muscle memory so that you're more familiar with using catalog, we'll do a couple more. So we'll also do a page for typography, right? So you definitely want to have typography on your design system. All right, so what we're going to do is we'll go back here to index.js, and then we'll also in here copy this, and we will put in a path to typography, and then also title. It's going to be typography, and we'll change this to typography. All right, so it's going to error if we look at the project because it does not exist. And so let's just create a typography.md. And again, it's like the same situation. We just go back, we refer to the documentation, we go to type, and this is where we can, and there's obviously a lot of options here for like showing the paragraphs and all that good stuff. So it's really a matter of understanding the available props that you have available to you, and these are defined inside of the actual Markdown section for a lot of these. So what I mean by Markdown section is like right here. So if you want to customize any of this stuff, like if you wanted to show tracking, you want to show leading, all that, and kerning and all that stuff, you would specify them as properties right here. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm not going to really go through all these. These are just all, this is all fake anyhow, but I'm going to paste something I came up with so we could have a section for headlines. We wrap this in a type specimen with the following, like the headings. This is the actual sizes that we're going to show. So it's basically an array of sizes. The font, I'm putting Montserrat. The color, this is showing what color it should be shown in. And the same thing with paragraphs and all this stuff. And this is just copying from their documentation. So now, if we click on typography, there we go. It's all set with our type. And this is an example, for instance, maybe using one of our primary colors. You can do all this cool stuff right here. Very, very handy. All right, let's take it one step further. Obviously, as a part of any design system, it's nice to have a component section with examples along with HTML, CSS, and or JavaScript code snippets for that part. So let's say, for instance, you have cards. You have a certain card aesthetic that your design system uses. You want to create a page for that, right? So it would actually make sense, instead of putting this under design, maybe we'll put it under its own heading called components. All right, so we'll go back here. This is the last thing we'll do, by the way. And we will create a separate section just down here. Let's just copy this. So we're copying that entire section. We're going to create a new one called components. If I can spell, come on. There we go. Components. It's going to be the path in the browser. And then our first component, we'll just say components. We'll put it in its own folder just for better organization here. So components, we'll call it card. This will be cards, and this will be components cards.md. So what we'll do is create a new folder, components, and we'll make this cards.md. All right, and here it is. So if we go back to here, we see components, we have our cards page. There we go, we're ready to rock. So this is if we go back here to our documentation, so what we want to do in this scenario is we want to use a couple of these specimens. So we want to use the HTML because it allows the documentation of HTML as well as JavaScript and CSS based views. So for example, it's showing you a button. Buttons are a common thing that you would include as a part of your components. And here's how you do it. You just specify a specimen right here. As you can see, it's the 3 backticks plus HTML. That's the specimen name. And then your HTML goes right there. That's all. And that produces this above, and it has this little syntax where you can show the actual code that's associated with it with the HTML. So let's go ahead and write our own just for a real quick demonstration of what a card would look like. All right, so if we go back to cards.md, we'll do card example, I don't know, and then we'll do HTML. And then inside we'll have our actual HTML for our cards. So div class equals card. Oh, unfortunately my Emmet abbreviations aren't working because it's a markdown file. No big deal. We'll do strong here. Actually, I'm just going to paste this in because you guys know all this stuff. So we'll just have a very simple card example like this with a strong heading right here and then a paragraph. All right, and here it is. As we can see, we have our section here where it shows my card title. Now, of course, this doesn't look like a card, right? So we need a way to integrate our own CSS that will make our card example actually work here, because this isn't a card design. This is just a heading and a paragraph title. So what we can do that in two ways. We can do inline CSS right here, like style equals, background white, like that. But then that's not ideal because you're mixing your HTML and your CSS together. What you can do instead is you can go to your index.js, and we can actually import a CSS file. So if we go up here, import and CSS from static and main.css, this will import globally a CSS file that we can use to style up our design system for code examples, like in that HTML card example. So now we have to go to static and create a main.css file. And then we can go ahead, and this had class equals card, so we can go over here to main. And so we'll just create a real quick rule set: card, background white, font family Montserrat, padding 1, blah, blah, blah. You get the point. And then we can go back over here, and now we can see it's an actual very simple card. All right, so now if you click on the syntax over here, you get the HTML that's associated with it, so that your developers, your front-end developers, can go ahead and grab this stuff, so that they use the proper HTML whenever there's a card that shows up in the design. What about CSS though, right? We're not showing CSS. As far as I was researching in here in the documentation, it would be nice to have like an HTML button and maybe a CSS and JavaScript button that toggles all that. I couldn't find it. If it does exist, let me know. But the way I found to do this is instead just to use a code specimen. So here's the basic information about it. You can specify the language inside of the code specimen here, and then after the 3 dashes goes the actual code. All right, so it's fairly simple. You can make them collapse if you want, so it says show example code. So what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and then into our Markdown file, we'll say CSS, and then we'll put code. And inside of here, we'll put collapsed true lang CSS. Now, I'm not sure if CSS is actual valid language, but I put it anyhow. It didn't look like it actually had syntax highlighting. So then we'll do card, and then we'll just come back here to our main.css. We'll grab this, and then we'll paste this. Paste the whole thing in. There you go. So now if we save this, we'll see that it shows CSS here, show example code, and there we go. It doesn't look like there's syntax highlighting on that. So let me see what happens if I remove that, if that changes anything. I don't think it does. Yeah, no big deal. But this is the CSS that people can just quickly grab now. They can grab the HTML here. They can get the CSS. You can do the same thing with JavaScript if there's any JavaScript associated with it, a given component. And that's basically it. So it's just a matter of using this documentation and seeing exactly what it is that you need to show. And for example, there's a lot more that this can do. You can actually have responsive code examples and all that stuff. I didn't want to get too much into it just to make this a shorter video. But yeah, just use the documentation, figure out what what it is you need. Check out the source or the documentation for all the settings and the props that you need. And there you go. You'll have yourself a full-fledged, responsive, ready to go design system / style guide. All right, everybody. Hopefully you found that useful. If so, subscribe up if you haven't yet. Leave a comment, leave a like. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.